I want to take an opportunity to, have either of you ask each other whatever you'd like. I have sort of set up the questions for you from here, but Lara, do you have anything that you want to sort of chat about with Dillon?
Yeah. Let's see. Maybe I'll toss out two questions, and Dillon, you can answer both or answer one, whatever resonates more. One, I would just love to hear like what makes you hopeful, or what kind of keeps you going in this work. Incredible work that you're doing. You make me feel very old. Just looking at your resume, and I don't know your exact age, but it's all very impressive. So that's one, is kind of what makes you hopeful. And the other I wanted to ask, because you mentioned earlier kind of this onslaught of content, especially online, and how do you break through that with the work that you're doing and the narratives that you're trying to get out there. So if you could offer like 2 or 3 social media accounts or news outlets, or recommendations you have for people who want to keep up and keep the pulse on what's going on in terms of youth of color and their work on climate justice, what would you recommend?
Questions. Yeah, and I think what keeps me going, I think it depends on the day. I think really my time is really spent exclusively right now around like how do we center youth of color. So like I really been really proud of just like the work we've been doing around just like allowing for youth of color led campaigns, and there's a youth of color led kind of climate justice campaign that will kind of be doing organizing in the near future. And I think just like that premise around like a really shifting power has been keeping me encouraged. And I think that it's so exciting for like every movement is like creating those spaces and allowing folks to, like lead and then really just like going against, I think it's like there's a lot of unlearning happening, which is on all sides, that I think is so powerful in times like this and like a need. But I think to see folks like doing the work and being willing to unlearn, I think is what keeps me going. And also I get to like all day I get to like talk with other young people around how we're gonna, how we're gonna change. A lot of my time spent around like how we change the media industry, how do we change the climate justice messaging. So on all of it, a lot of it is really led by youth of color. So I think that is what really keeps me exciting. Keeps me excited is just like that premise around like, okay, young people are here and we're just doing it. We're figuring it out as we go. We're also juggling. Like I will jump into a college class and this evening after work. Like we're also just like juggling all of it together, and like that there's something so beautiful around in this premise that we think or we hope or we know, I don't know, that we can change how things are done, or at least kind of nail at it or hammer it away. And then in terms of social media content, I do think I don't leave Future Coalition social anymore, but Future Coalition is a great kind of source around like what folks are doing across the movement. I do think International Indigenous Youth Council does some great content and curation of content around youth-led movements. And then Earth Gardens also does some great Indigenous youth-led content. And I think that's really, all of us together are just like continue to push away around using like everything from memes to just like explainer graphics. We're in the age of explainer graphics on Instagram. So we've just seen like a bunch of different content. I guess that's also the question I want to pass back to you, Laura. It's just like we are in a constant state of content in terms of climate and everything else, but then we're also in this like doomsday and very jargony, like around climate and everything else. There's a lot of that messaging that's like people like tune out. So I guess my question is just like, how do we do this more thoughtfully around like understanding that there's the data that's sometimes jargony just by the nature of it, but how do we break it down and also do it more thoughtfully so that folks aren't just in the constant state of climate anxiety all the time? Because I think we're seeing a lot of that, just where I'm like, okay, there's this thing, but I don't know what to do with this information, and then it becomes counterproductive for folks, I think.
Well, I think that's a $1,000,000 question, right? I guess in my hopeful moments, I like to think that this some have called it a syndemic that we're in right now, right? These cascading multiple pandemics, not just COVID, but racism and the toll it's taking, and climate change, right? All these things have come together to make it a very a difficult time for a lot of people. And so it can be really overwhelming. And I think, I guess, I think drawing the connections between these different issues can help kind of make them seem less overwhelming on their own, right? For example, like the root causes of many of the inequities that we're seeing are very linked, right? In not just the climate space, but in the COVID epidemic and elsewhere. So focusing on root causes, I think, can get us farther in terms of addressing all of these things, rather than seeing them as these separate insurmountable problems. And I think also, you know, the work that youth have been doing, they're putting forward this very compelling moral and ethical argument around what we need to be doing to address climate change, right? Because this is the generation that's inheriting the climate we leave behind, of course. So that is an incredibly strong message, an incredibly strong argument. And I think focusing on the benefits of taking action can maybe help get us away from some of that doomsday thinking that makes us just want to bury our head in the sand. Because there are a lot of benefits to putting investments into, you know, transitioning off fossil fuels, a greener economy, this work around the Green New Deal, right? And really leveraging the imperative to act with our goals around racial justice and health equity to do something transformative that really does benefit communities and address some of these long-standing racial inequalities. So I think focusing on the benefits of taking action rather than the doomsday narrative of what's going to happen if we don't, perhaps is one thing.
Amazing. Well, I know that I'm emerging from this conversation with a little bit more hope, and it keeps me really excited. At Sea Solutions, it's definitely our driving force to focus on solutions, to focus on climate justice. And this conversation has not only been an amazing learning opportunity, but has really made me excited about the work that we can all do together. I really want to thank both of you for taking the time this morning and for sharing about your experiences and the lessons that you've learned and the strategies that you use. I am really excited to see what this new, relationship can hold.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. I'll talk
Thanks,
to you.
Lynn. Great to meet you, Dillon.
It's great to meet you too. Thanks so much.
Bye.